Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots of interesting things unfolding here this week. We had the Trump lawyer on literally every Sunday show, so we will show you some of the highlights of that. We have Americans potentially having a change of heart with regard to aid to Ukraine, even as, of course, the political class continues to push forward. Republicans, the Republican base, seeming to sour on wokeness. Some interesting poll numbers for you there. Wells Fargo, once again, being the worst bank of all time. This time, apparently, they deleted some of their customer deposits, and this isn't even the first time that happened.
This is wild stuff.
Unbelievable stuff. Lizzo accused of fat shaming. It's quite a plot twist. We will get to the allegations, what the dancers are saying, and also the impact already on her career. And we have a guy in studio today who is going to make the case why Joe Biden should be reelected. We'll talk to him about the economic numbers, how people are feeling, and see what he thinks about all of that. Before we get to any of that, though, a little programming note. Tomorrow is back to school day for my kids, so need to get them off in the morning. So I'm going to do the show with Saagar, but we'll be a little bit late. So
yes, it'll be a little bit later. She'll be coming in remotely, but we'll make sure that it's good. Thank you again to all the premium subscribers who built this beautiful studio for us, helping us compel guests. Michael LaRosa, our guest today, is actually the former press secretary to the First Lady, Joe Biden, and senior advisor to Biden in the White House. Kind of the first time that we've been able to host someone here in the studio who is literally from the Biden White House. We appreciate them engaging with us, and I don't think it would be possible without all of you guys. So breakingpoints.com, if you can help us out and become a premium sub, you're helping build a space for some fun conversations and interviews so far.
Indeed. All right, let's get to Trump and his various legal issues. So his lawyer, in a sign of the fact that, yes, they're going to make their case in court as best they can, but they also clearly see the political case as being essential to former President Trump maintaining his freedom. So his lawyer, John Lauro, went on every single Sunday show that is called The Full Ginsburg. You can go look at the history of that to try to make the case on behalf of his client. We've pulled some of the highlights of that. Let's take a listen.
Former Vice President Mike Pence, he's taken issue with your contention that President Trump was simply asking him to pause the certification. Let's take a look.
American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election.
What's your response?
Yeah. Mike Pence will be one of our best witnesses at trial. I read his book very carefully. And if he testifies consistent with his book, then President Trump will be acquitted for these reasons. Number one, Mr. Pence recognizes that John Eastman, who was giving legal advice, was a renowned legal scholar. Number two, Vice President Pence recognized that there were discrepancies and fraud in connection with the election. He wanted it to be debated on Capitol Hill. Mr. Trump wanted it to be debated in the state legislatures. But make no mistake about it, based on what Vice President Pence will say, the government will never be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump had corrupt or criminal intent. And that's what this case is about.
What Mike Pence has said all this week is that what President Trump did was wrong, and he knew it was wrong, and he was pressing him to do something that was wrong. It was also pretty clear.
He never said it was criminal.
He said it was wrong.
Never said it was criminal. There may be difference. You may think that somebody is acting inappropriately under constitutional principles, but Mr. Pence, who's a lawyer, never said to Mr. Trump, I think what you're doing is criminal. The ultimate option that Mr. Trump asked for, President Trump asked for at the ellipse speech, was merely to pause the voting for a period of time to allow the state legislature to weigh in.
For many days before that, he was insisting that they would reject the votes.
First, is there any condition under which the former President of the United States, your client, would accept a plea deal on these January 6 charges?
No.
Will you seek a motion to dismiss?
Absolutely, 100%.
When?
100%. Well, within the time permitted. This is what's called a Swiss cheese indictment. It has so many holes that we're going to be identifying and litigating a number of motions that we're going to file on First Amendment grounds, on the fact that President Trump is immune as president from being prosecuted. President Trump believed in his heart of hearts that he had won that election. And as any American citizen, he had a right to speak out under the First Amendment. First of all, this protective order that's being suggested by the Biden administration is an effort to keep from the press important non-sensitive information that the Biden administration has that may speak to
This isn't by the Biden administration. This is by the
President
special
Trump.
independent counsel.
No, here for this reason, no. The independent counsel, it's not independent, it's special counsel, has to get the approval of Merrick Garland in order to go forward. But when it comes to political speech, you can not only advocate for a position, but you can take action. You can petition. You can ask even your vice president to pause the vote for a period of time in order to allow the states to recertify.
Which is what this indictment alleges.
You have to understand what the First Amendment says and what it stands for, and all of the examples in this indictment are core political speech. Every single thing that President Trump is being prosecuted for involved aspirational asks, asking state legislatures, asking state governors, asking state electoral officials to do the right thing. In fact, even asking Vice President Pence was protected by free speech. None of that is illegal.
Okay. So a lot there. First of all, just to recap a little bit of what he said, and I'll get your reaction, Saagar. First of all, he says this case is about if Trump had corrupt intent, and he also talks a lot about the First Amendment. So he sees it as being very pivotal that Jack Smith and his team be able to prove that Trump either knew that what he was saying was a pack of lies, or else any sort of reasonable person presented with all of the information that he had and all of the advice he had from, Bill Barr to Mike Pence to various lawyers would have come to the conclusion that what he was saying was a pack of lies. And so that's one piece. The piece about Pence is kind of interesting. He claims that Mike Pence will end up being one of their best witnesses on the stand. I find that a little hard to believe, given that Pence says at this point, he was kind of waffly and a little wiggly about what exactly he thought about January 6th. At this point, he's made some pretty clear comments that what Trump did was wrong. Pence himself sought out legal advice to figure out if he was allowed to do that. He came to the conclusion, based on what he was presented with, that this was not something that you could do, that it would be against the law, unconstitutional, et cetera. So we'll see if Pence ends up being a good witness for that. And he mentions there also this protective order, and there have been some legal developments with regard to that we'll get to in just a minute. But you see him out there really making the case. And to me, the fact that he is on all 5 of these shows trying to make the case to the American people tells you they see it as much more critical to sort of win hearts and minds and try to win an election. They feel better about those odds than they probably feel about their odds in the courtroom.
Well, they probably should, considering we've got a D.C. judge, a D.C. Jury, and I guess we'll get to some of that whenever it comes to the judge. I do think it is still worth engaging a little bit with the facts of what he presented. The most interesting one to me is about the state of mind. And Bradley Moss, in our debate, which I encourage everybody to go and to watch, pointed out that trying to prove a defendant's state of mind is a typical but a difficult task often for prosecutors. That's part of the reason why, if you guys read the indictment, you can actually see there's multiple times where Trump is presented with a list of people who presented him with the facts that he did lose the election. In that way, Krystal, Mike Pence, I think what they're saying might be a good witness is that Pence can testify that no, he really did believe it whenever he was pressuring me. The problem for Trump is that if they did, in fact, or Pence can testify when Trump said, quote, "you are too honest," then being too honest would imply that you're going countervailing to the facts as he would know it. And then second, really going and rejecting some of the Sidney Powell claims in private before then embracing some of them in public. So those would be 2 key instances where the prosecutors might try and prove that he did not, in fact, believe everything that he was saying. It is an interesting thing, though, to try and prove somebody's state of mind as it coincides with free speech protections. It's another reason that they're saying. But overall, I think that your read of the whole thing is correct, which is, look, they don't think they're going to win this case. They're obviously going to throw everything they got at it, but they're going to try and throw everything to the American people. And also, look, they don't have they do have a decent case on appeal, very likely, considering that some of this is almost certainly going to get adjudicated by the Supreme Court. So they're going to lay that out there as well. But this is political. Anything with a political official, by definition, is going to fall into this realm. And I read it exactly the same way you did.
Yeah, one interesting note on that piece about, if this goes to the Supreme Court or not. Some of the pushback, we didn't play it there from that lawyer, but some of the conservative pushback that I've heard is, some of these charges, it's sort of untested. This is a novel application of these laws. The civil rights one in particular, people have been pointing to. But even this idea of, okay, you were corruptly impacting a government proceeding, right? Obstructing a government proceeding, official proceeding. That particular charge has been used against literally hundreds of the January 6th rioters. So in a sense, even though, Trump's actions were not exactly the same as people who were trespassing in the Capitol and doing whatever those people did, you still have some sort of precedent of using this charge with regards to obstructing the counting of the electoral votes on January 6th. And out of, I think there are 15 different judges who have handled cases that involve this charge with regards to January 6th rioters, and 14 out of the 15 found it to be an appropriate charge. It went up to a federal appeals court. The appeals court agreed with the government's interpretation of this. Now that, of course, is not the end of the appeals process. That may end up with the Supreme Court, so that sort of litigation and those questions are ongoing. But at least some of these theories have been somewhat tested in court at this time. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.